So today we're talking about the most interesting topic and the most questioned topic of all time in my career, and that is the issue of trusts. What are trusts? What's the purpose of trusts? Everybody seems to have a question around this, and so today I decided, let me just do a video to at least give people an idea of what a trust is, the benefits of a trust, and the types of trust, because there are constant questions people will ask me around this particular issue. So today is the day. So in case you're someone who's interested in this particular topic, do not move an inch. Today is the conversation you need to be a part of. So let's not even waste any more time. Let's dive into the content. But before we do so, let me introduce myself to all of the new followers or people that are watching this video. My name is Mnyengeza, and I'm an attorney and a director at Mnyengeza Attorneys. So let's dive into the topic. Question number one, what is a trust? So it's quite simple. A trust is a contract between two or more people. So what do we mean by contract? Who are these people contracting here? So the people that are contracting here, number one, is the founder. Who is a founder? The founder is the person that has an idea, an urge to set up a trust for whatever reason, whether it be for estate planning purposes, or they just want to make sure that their assets or their family assets are preserved for generations and generations. That particular person who has the idea is called the founder. So the founder is now going to donate something or give something to make sure that this trust comes to life. But let's talk about the other parties that are part of this contract. And those people we call the trustees. So what's the role of the trustees here? Now the trustees are there to implement the goals of this particular trust. The goals of the founder. So the founder says, I want this to be established, and says to the trustees, I give you an instruction to make sure that this happens. So the trustees are the ones that administer the whole trust. So obviously, a trust is set up for the purposes of benefiting someone. So there is an act that's required on the part of the trustees. So that's where they come in. So if they're meant to pay a monthly fee to beneficiaries, that's their role. That's part of the things that they have to do. So trustees are very critical and important people, part of this contract. But what is this contract established for? What's the basis? What's the purpose? The purpose is to establish a trust that's going to benefit third parties who we refer to as the beneficiaries. Who are these beneficiaries? So the beneficiaries are determined by the founder. If the founder says, I want to establish a trust for the benefit of my children, the children will be the beneficiaries. If the founder says, I want to establish a trust for the benefit of a charity organization, I want to support, the beneficiaries are going to be who? That particular charity organization. So whoever the founder determines to be the beneficiary will be the beneficiary. So whatever it is that he is giving as an instruction at the establishment or setting up of this trust, the trustees have a responsibility to make sure that that particular benefit is given to those beneficiaries. So that is the whole relationship we refer to when we're talking about trust. So one thing you have to note is that once this relationship has come to light, whatever it is that's placed in this trust, in this particular entity, belongs to this trust. So how it's actually administered will depend on what we call the trust deed. The trust deed will give out instructions as to how things need to be done. So that's the whole relationship, and that is what a trust is. Let's move on to the second question. What are the different types of trust? Because one of the things that I've established is that as much as a lot of people have an interest in establishing or setting up a trust, often the case is they don't even understand the different types so that they can be able to make an informed decision. So let's get to that question. What are the different types of trust that are available in South Africa? What's the first type of trust that is actually available in South Africa? Now, the first type of trust is what we call an inter vivos trust. So what is an inter vivos trust? An inter vivos trust is a trust that is set up during your lifetime. When you are alive, you will see it come to play. Whether you'll be a trustee or a beneficiary, but you will see it. So whatever goal you have, you will see it come to play. So majority of the time, people want to establish these kinds of trusts just so that they can benefit as well from the trust. And secondly, sometimes people tend to want to set up this trust so that they can steer clear from having to pay what we call estate duty tax when they pass away. So what is estate duty tax? Now, if you're a person who's leaving an estate that's more than 3.5 million, you will be liable to pay a tax that we refer to as an estate duty tax to SARS. So in order for people to try and steer clear from having to pay this amount of money to SARS, what they tend to do is to just set up a trust so that when they pass away, that particular tax does not apply. How can it not apply? Because if you place all of your assets, let's say, into this entity we refer to as the trust, it means that you don't own anything. And so if you pass away, there is nothing to be administered, because that's when that tax is actually invoked. And so if you don't have any assets, or you have very minimal assets, you will not pay the estate duty tax because everything is in the trust. But even though there is this benefit, before you establish a trust, always seek professional assistance so that you can see also what the cost implications will be, and also whether this is a suitable thing for you or not. Let's go to the second type of trust. Now, the second type of trust a lot of people establish is a trust that we call a testamentary trust. Now, this one you will not see come to play because it will only be set up when you've passed away. So this type of trust is included in your will. So it needs to be clearly worded and worded in a way that is not going to confuse people when you pass away. So whatever it is that you're saying there needs to be clear, that you're giving an instruction that a trust must be established and everything that you're leaving behind must be placed there to benefit whoever you have stipulated to be the beneficiary. So normally, a lot of people will choose to do this if they have, let's say, a goal for their family when they passed away. For instance, they just want to make sure that, let's say, certain properties work to provide for their families when they are not there. Or else they want certain policies to actually not be squandered and placed in a certain structure so that the people that are benefiting don't get the opportunity to squander everything within a very short space of time. So majority of the time, these are the reasons why people will set up a testamentary trust. So do you see the difference? Now, you have to understand there are different cost implications in setting up these two types of trusts. So this is also something that you need to consider before making a decision as to whether you're going to set up a testamentary trust or an inter vivos trust. And I repeat, before you make this type of decision, before you actually skip and say, I want a trust to be established, just get proper information for yourself so that you understand exactly what this will entail for you, because for each and every person, setting up a trust has different implications. Okay, so let's move on to our last part of this video, and that is, what are the benefits of a trust? Now, this is something I normally talk about, but let's get into much more detail. Benefit number one, if you set up an inter vivos trust, for example, you will run away from things like estate duty tax. Like I mentioned to you, when you pass away, you have certain taxes that you need to pay. And if you have a lot of money, you will be, or your estate will be liable for what we call an estate duty tax. However, if you decide to set up an inter vivos trust and place everything that you have in that particular trust, it means that when you pass away, you will not have anything that is in your name, which means what? You will not be liable to pay estate duty tax. And estate duty tax currently is 25% of the actual assets you're leaving behind. So what's the second benefit of a trust? The second benefit of a trust is that if you place any assets in the trust and then you, for instance, become bankrupt in the future, or let's say you become insolvent, your creditors cannot come for the properties placed in a trust because they are not your particular properties. But you need to be careful here. Do not set up a trust for the purposes of hiding assets. Set it up so that you preserve your own property, not to hide things from creditors. Otherwise, they may actually come for that property. So you have to have very good intentions when you're setting up a trust. So before you do so, make sure you speak to your own legal practitioner who's well versed in trusts. Now let's talk about the third benefit of a trust. Now the third benefit is that some people want to use it, or actually use it, as a way to preserve their wealth in the family, to make sure that it is not squandered, to make sure that it goes a long way. Now, this is one of the things that a lot of people have seen, is that many families, when they are left a lot of hefty inheritance, they tend to squander it within a very short space of time. And so in order to avoid this, a lot of people that leave some wealth to their families have actually seen that the best way to do so is through a trust, because here you can give out instructions how much or how money can actually be paid out to your beneficiaries and to what extent. And so you also have these trustees that are going to make sure that all of these instructions are followed. So instead of you, for instance, leaving an amount of money that's worth millions to one person who can actually squander it within a very short space of time, you can actually put it in this entity that we refer to as a trust, and then dictate how the money is paid out to your family. And in this way, a lot of people have been able to preserve a lot of funds for their families for generations and generations. On that note, this brings us to the end of our discussion today. Till we meet next time. Guys, in case you want to meet with us, you're welcome to contact us. We're always willing to help in this regard. And make sure that you always protect your family's interests and also your interests. My name is Mnyengeza, and I'm an attorney and a director at Mnyengeza Attorneys. And we'll see you next time when we have something to talk about that's probably interesting to you.